In a world increasingly shaped by technology, the HumanUp Imperative explores the significance of human connection with each other, with the communities we serve, and perhaps most importantly, with ourselves. Join Rex Wallace and his guests as they discuss the ever-important role of authentic, meaningful connection in healthcare. It's time to Human Up.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the HumanUp Imperative. Today we have part 2 of a special 2-part series supporting human connection with job seekers. In part 1, which we recorded recently with a couple of job seekers who are in the market right now, experiencing this incredibly challenging market that we do have, right? So it's not an easy place to be looking for a new role, not an easy time to be looking for a new role. Today, we're flipping the lens. Our panel today is on the other side of the process, connecting people to opportunities. And today, we're joined by Jamie Masters, Senior Director of Recruiting at Executive Staffing Solutions, Timshel Tarbet, former Chief Healthcare Experience and Equity Officer, and Jeff Grant, President and Founder of Schedule F Healthcare Strategies. Please join me as we human up with Jamie, Timshel, and Jeff. Welcome to the show, guys. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
So let's let each of you give a little bit more introduction of yourself so people know who you are. So we'll start with Jamie. Who is Jamie Masters?
What a great question. I am a mom, a wife, a really loud, passionate, some might say, outgoing person. And I thought, wow, what do I want to do with my life? Sounds like human resources is it. So I've been in some form of recruiting most of my life and have loved it. It's always been in some form of healthcare. And I think my reasoning was I want to help people, but I sure don't like blood and I don't want to be a doctor. So here I am, and happy to be on this podcast. Thanks so much. And look forward to chatting the rest of today.
Me too. Thanks. How about Timshel? Who is Timshel?
Oh, wow. I think it would depend on who you ask, so I'll just explain it from my standpoint. I am a military veteran. I have been my career has taken an interesting path from human resources to running ethics at a company to running risk management to then doing business outreach, diversity strategy, and a bunch of other things in healthcare. But one of the things that I will say is healthcare is a spot where I am extremely happy because deep down, if you were to ask me, who am I at my core, it's somebody that wants to care for those that need the help and who don't always get the opportunities. And so having been in HR in healthcare, it provides me that opportunity. And as I've risen through my executive ranks, it's given me also the opportunity to look at systems change and make change throughout organizations on how we're showing up in our communities.
Oh, wow. That's great. Thanks, Timshel. And who is Jeff?
I too am a military veteran. I started my federal career in the Navy in 1982, and I retired in February of this year, and I had only a 21-month break. So I had nearly 42 years of federal service. I never thought of myself originally as an HR person, but in the roles I took on, I did a lot of new work. So I was involved in a bunch of program implementations in the Medicare program, and then I came back to government to implement the Affordable Care Act. And a big piece of every implementation on a new program is getting the right people for the startup. And then over time, it became even beyond getting the right people. It was making a great place for people to work so that you not only got the right people, but you could retain those people and have them be as successful as possible, which meant I was a lot more of an HR person than I ever thought I was going to be as I ascended into kind of senior leadership roles. And I began to view that as my role in the organization. And I left at the time when I could no longer take care of my people, and we were facing mass firings of people. We had kind of taken great efforts to hire the right people, raise them up in the organization, and now we were just going to cast them to the side. And so I left with the intent of being able to continue to serve, but doing it from the outside rather than from inside government.
Yeah, Jeff. Well, I'm super glad all three of you were on. You have such unique perspectives. Jeff, I've been connected with you on LinkedIn for a while. We haven't really interacted really, but I've watched you, come from inside and then leave and go outside, and then the help you're providing now. So it's been it's been inspiring to watch what you do there. Jamie, traditional, like recruiter, we've interacted with ESS a lot with your firm. You guys are, I feel like, kind of the firm in healthcare. We know so many people at your firm and have interacted with you and used you at different roles that we've had. And someone connected us. So thanks for being on. Timshel, we actually worked together before, right? And at an organization, and you're playing that role from inside the employer, and the chief equity officer, et cetera. So I think this is a great diverse group of voices that'll help job seekers as they hear our episode today. So if we jump right in, and I'll just kind of keep that order. So Jamie, we'll start with you. What does the job market look like from your seat right now? What are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in how people are applying, interviewing, presenting themselves, et cetera?
Yeah, so the job market's definitely different than it was, let's say, 3 years ago. We're seeing a huge shift personally in the on-site requirements, where 3 years ago everything was remote and it was so easy to fill those jobs, right? Companies let you work whatever Pacific, Mountain, Eastern Standard Time, it really didn't matter as long as you got the job done. Now people are wanting you back. They're wanting people back in the office. So that's a challenge. And our clients are asking for hybrid 4 days a week, 3 days a week. And they're not so open to allowing for, a telecommuter. So that's where I'm seeing the biggest shift most recently. And then compensation, the money. It's just where, again, I would say about 3 years ago, people were asking for the upper ranges of the comp, and employers were paying it. And now they're pushing back and they're asking why, and how do you come to that money, and can we get them lower? That's always the question the client asks me now, where I'd say 3 years ago is a lot less strict about the money. So I think those are the two biggest things. The comp ranges have shrunk and the remote status is going away.
So the comp, I can imagine. I mean, we work with a lot of health plans, and I see how they're performing financially, which is not great. It's difficult for them financially, at least across most lines of business. So I can see that. Our job seekers yesterday talked about sometimes it's a very broad range, much broader than before. The one used an example of, this role had a job range of $50,000 up to $750,000, like literally, which is insane, right? So, to understand where you would fall in there, and they're never going to pay near the top these days, like you said. So it feels ambiguous to them.
I'll take the 700.
I mean, right. That is a serious broadband when you think
I
about.
have never seen anything like that.
Yeah,
I've seen some broad ranges, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, it feels unrealistic. Jamie, real quick on the working, and I see it too, where not as open to remote employees now. Is that just employee? And you guys feel free to chime in when you give your answer too. Is that just employers feeling like for employees to be ultimately accountable, they need to be in person? They produce more. Like I need my eyes on them now, whereas I didn't have a choice before, but now that I have a choice, I really need them in the office, or is it something else?
Well, I just feel like it's a mix. One, there's a lease that they're paying for with no bodies in the building.
Sure. Okay.
So they're wanting their employees to be on site. And I'm sure there is some level of control. Like I need to be able to see, I need to see the results. I need to know that these employees are working. I mean, in a lot of the positions that I feel like I work on, productivity is a given. Like you don't have to be in front of your boss to see that you're being productive. So I do believe it's a combination of, yes, there's an empty building that they want butts in the office.
Yeah.
And especially the C-suite leadership, they're wanting that executive presence on site.
Okay.
And then the other piece that I guess I didn't think to mention as well is just the process is a lot slower now than it was, like, let's say 3 years ago. There Companies are interviewing more and more candidates because there's more candidates to
Right.
interview, where before we'd give them 3 and they'd make a decision. Right now they're like, well, do you have any more? Let's see 10, let's see 15, let's see 20. So because there's more candidates out there, they have that ability. It's more of an employer focus versus 3 years ago. It was a much more a candidate market.
Sure.
Can I add
Timshel.
on
Yeah.
folks bringing folks into the office, because the last 2 organizations that I've worked at have brought folks back in, and a lot of it I've heard as we've talked about it has been from a cultural standpoint, also wanting to make sure that you're keeping that connection between your employees, and making sure that as you think about driving culture, reducing retention, it's almost like the double-edged sword. You want people to come in so they feel the connection with their their coworkers. But when you have them come in, especially depending on where you're living and the cost or the time to get there, it then creates a situation where people are like, I don't want to, and it's worth it for me to take a little bit of a pay cut and go somewhere else. So I do think that there's a cultural component of how you work together, and what those interactions and decision making looks like if you are in the office and interacting more. So I think that's also another component of why
Sure.
you see more businesses wanting folks to come back in.
Yeah, and I would
Timshel.
say
Okay,
that
Jeff.
we're getting a mixed bag on our placements. So, yeah, well, first of all, we're taking former public servants, and we have the challenge of anytime you want to work for a state government, you are going to be in the state. It's interesting. It's not even necessarily a remote versus in office as much as states don't pay money outside the state. So that has been one challenge that we have had with trying to place our people, is that there's a lot of good state government jobs, but are you ready to move to Idaho? Are you ready to move to Nebraska? Or even California? Like, it's expensive to move to California
Sure.
and take a job there. I've had lots of job opportunities and few takers on California jobs. We had a kind of a mixed viewpoint on it. I was probably less worried about it than my fellow SES. We had 2 careers that ran a center with a political over us. I was less concerned about the physical in-office presence. I thought episodic was fine. Others felt differently, but I felt like at least the early lesson of the pandemic was work-life balance was actually worse remote than it was
Right.
in office, because people made that barrier. Like, when you left the office, you were done, then you kind of shut it down. But when your office is your home, it was harder to do that. And people worked a lot longer hours, I felt like, but they were also super productive. I do think it's a little different connecting like this, other than, and I like meeting people face to face. I'm a very people person, but we're finding a lot of places are still willing to hire remote. We get a few hybrid, but a lot of places we're looking are willing to hire people remotely and let them work remote.
So when you guys are looking at these candidates, and Jamie, back to you, what do they often get wrong about the process? What could they do better or do differently?
I think just having patience, number one, because I mentioned the process is definitely slower. Being realistic, and so I try to really set expectations in the very beginning when I'm working with different candidates. Here's what the process is going to look like. This could take this many weeks. So just setting the expectations that it could be a timely, and it doesn't necessarily reflect that they don't love you. It doesn't mean that they're not interested in you. It's just part of the process. And then I guess you said, what did they do wrong? Is that what the second question was?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say just having the ability to, I'm trying to think of what I was just trying to say. Just trying to have the understanding that the market is just a little bit slower, and really working within those means and saying, hey, I can be patient, trying to get more than one opportunity at one point, at one time. So not placing all your eggs in one basket, right? Trying to go out there and find multiple opportunities so you can make the best decision for yourself and not have somebody make it for you. I think that that would be the one best piece of advice. If you could apply for multiple positions, have your recruiter submit you for multiple opportunities, that's best case scenario.
Gotcha.
And I would say, kind of sadly, for a lot of the folks that I'm working with that are longtime feds, the mistake they made was in the past. They were a federal employee. Like, I was very active on LinkedIn. You've known me on LinkedIn, at least, for years. While I was a federal employee and not looking to get a job. I was not using LinkedIn to get a job. I was using LinkedIn to build a network, and just for the connection of the network. I learned from people. I love reading some people's insightful posts and things like that. And then you make posts yourself, and you begin to identify, at least with your network, and people know who you are. They're curious about you. I'm also fortunate that I was senior enough that I had a very large network just out of people knowing me from the work I did. But I think it's a lack of understanding the value of just having a bunch of people know you, know who you are, so when you need help, you can ask for it. And you're not making the connection when you're trying to make the sale. The connection, I always found this even when I was out in the private sector and I made sales in the private sector, those were based on connections. And sometimes I would meet you at a conference and we would talk. Then I would see you 6 months later at a conference. We'd sit down and have coffee. And at some point, the conversation would lead to a business opportunity where it's like, hey, wait, I think we could help you out with this, rather than me going to you with like a pitch deck, which is the worst thing in the world. And I feel like that's what you're doing if you don't already have the network, is now you're just taking your pitch deck to as many people as you can. And the sales rate on those is just far lower.
Right.
And that's not something those folks can fix, but people that are thinking about where they are in life now and not necessarily seeing that they're going to be looking for a job, that's not what a network's about. This is part of my network here, talking to you. I'm not getting a job out of it. I'm not looking for a job out of it, but it's like sharing and being part of like a bigger universe is just helpful in life. And then when you need it, it can come through for you.
Yeah, it's like, when's the best time to build a network? Before you need to access it, right? And when, I guess, the second best time is when you do need to access it now. But it's not the best time. But the network is arguably the most important piece of this, right? Having those connections, knowing people within organizations. Because
Our placements are generally coming off of referrals direct from us,
Exactly.
where people know that they want somebody, and we flip them 3-5 resumes. They're coming for a very specific purpose to us. It's a little different than what Jamie does.
Sure.
We're not a traditional placement firm. In fact, we have a terrible business model for a placement firm. I'm guessing Jamie doesn't want to place every person whose resume she has.
I sure would like to.
You would like to, but like you're never going to do that. That is our explicit goal, is to place everybody whose resume we have, which is challenging and frustrating at times.
Yeah, I agree.
Timshel,
am on board with the networking piece. I think, and that's what I advise every person that calls me that says, I just lost my job. I mean, network. There's no person you can't shout to in your network, outside of your network. Let people know you're looking, because that's going to get you your next job. As to your point, that reference, that friend of a friend of a friend, that's your best recruiter.
Yeah, let me build on that for a second. I do think sometimes with folks, it's a little bit hard sometimes to reach out because you feel like you don't want to bother someone. You don't want to, I haven't talked to somebody in 5 years. I don't want to just call them out of the blue and say, hey, I'm looking for work. I know we're connected on LinkedIn, but what can we do, or can you help me? I have never It's so funny. If you think about it, have you ever really asked somebody like, "Hey, I need your help," and have them be like, "No, ew." That doesn't happen. People want to help you and they want to help connect you to someone else. So if you know I'm interested in A, B, or C, then find out who you know in that might have connections in A, B, or C and work it that way. I think so many times people just want to go on LinkedIn, they see an open job and they hit apply. And then they think the magic job fairies are going to tweedle down and give them a job and everything's going to go over great. That doesn't happen. But if you have a network, and even if it's small, then start with your small network and use them and say, "Hey, listen, I'm looking. I know that, I'm trying to grow my network. Are there two to five people that you would recommend I reach out to or you could connect me with where I can just do a coffee chat with them?" You're not asking them for a job. You're not asking them for anything like that. You're just asking them to help you build your network. And a lot of times people are more than willing to do that.
Yeah, there's a great book by Adam Grant that I read early on when I became an executive. There was Bob Sutton, a Stanford business professor, had the books every leader should read, and this was one of them. It was called Give and Take. And he kind of puts people into categories of givers, takers, and then transactional people. So if I agree to come on Rex's podcast, then he owes me something, and I kind of keep this ledger as opposed to like I come on the podcast, maybe it's good for me, maybe it's good for Rex, maybe it's good for you guys, maybe it's good for the people listening to it, but you're not really worrying about that. And takers are constantly like just trying to get one up on everybody. So, and in this book, he goes into like the virtues of giving and how it actually can grow your career over time. It builds up this network and stuff of people. But one of the points he makes late in the book is about being willing to ask for help, which is kind of runs counter to what givers do because they feel like they're there to help other people, not to ask for help. And it's a position of vulnerability to ask for help. You're admitting that you don't maybe necessarily have everything it takes to get this done, which is something that none of us like to say. We want to believe in ourselves, and this is kind of like a shortcoming is almost, but it's not. It's just that the world is not built just to employ you. It's not like there is no magic on LinkedIn. So you can't just like do everything that's within your power. Sometimes you need other people to move you along. And my career has always moved along because somebody at some point in time saw something in me and helped move my career along. I didn't do it myself. I didn't necessarily ask for the help, but I got it. And a few times I did reach out and ask for help. I probably should have done it more. But yeah, I think asking for help is far undervalued by people, and I think people feel they're either imposing or they're showing a sign of weakness. Neither of those is true.
Yeah, one of our job seekers in the other episode made the point that she had to make herself not just ask for help, but just allow herself to have these feelings, to experience all the feelings, and to realize that that this bad thing happened, and to sort of, as she's going through all these emotions, to allow herself to grieve too, right? And not just feel like whatever, a victim, or I've got to go get on the job right now and I can't slow down, but to allow yourselves to feel all of these things and to realize, hey, we all need help. We're human, right? I need to ask for help. And one of the other job seeker talked about, when we said, what have people done to help? He said the specific person gave him space for psychological safety, meaning she was sort of a mentor and a friend, but she just would check on him regularly and not just ask about the job search, but how's your dog doing, right? How's your husband doing? How'd the move to Phoenix go? Like, just creating this psychologically safe space. And then he was able to share more and vent more, but not just about the job search, about life in general. It's bigger than that, right? And to not make everything about the job search. Anyway, it was, a lot of, I feel like it's related to what you're saying, Jeff, around just asking for help, right? And not being, allowing yourself to be that vulnerable.
And the job search is like your job, right? So When you have a job, it shouldn't always be just about the job. The job search is now your job, but you also need to have that fuller self, and that will actually make you more successful in the job search.
Right. For sure. When it's making it bigger than us too, right? On the other side, when people are successful, when you see a candidate and they jump off the page, or they rise above everyone else, what is it about those people in this market today that makes them stand out?
A
Timshel.
referral? I mean, I would go there. It's a referral, like, so not to go back to the network, but a lot of times it's what you hear from others, right? But it's
Yeah.
also, and maybe not helpful, but what their activity is on LinkedIn, other things. It's not just the resume. So you can look at the resume, but then I want to see who you are a little bit more. So I'll look you up on LinkedIn. I'll see what you've done. I'll see, where your activity is. And then of course in an interview, once you get to the interview stage, I think it depends on how you show up, and then how you follow up afterwards. All of those things to me are pretty key, just from an interaction standpoint, and showing that you really are genuinely interested in the role, and you've done your research. So have you done your research about the organization? Have you done your research about me? Have you looked at my LinkedIn? Are you asking the right questions, for our organization? Not the general questions that you might be able to Google or AI gives you, but like talk about it from our organization and what we've talked about and where we're trying to drive to. I think all of those things make you stand out. You want to not be just general.
In the interview process, assuming they're virtual, how important is background? How important is what they're wearing? Like things like that.
I mean, I think it depends on how you show up, right? So if you've got people walking behind you, or, like sometimes my cat chooses to do parkour when I'm in a meeting. So if I was interviewing, I call it parkour, I'd lock her out, right? So we're not going to have that going on. You need to not be distracted. I will go back to my child who was a high schooler during COVID, and I swear he looked like he had like this darkness around him because he always had the light at his back. Like, you need to do some of the basic things on have the right lighting, make sure that you're clear, be on time. I had somebody show up and was like 10 minutes late, and I sat there, and then her internet died, and it just ended up not putting forth she was like my top candidate until that happened, and then I was like, ooh, let me think about this a little bit more. So I do think all of that matters.
Okay.
I agree. I think putting your best foot forward, no matter what level of job it is, dressing for success, having the right background. We have a story I tell every candidate. When you're on Zoom, make sure whatever's in your background is, not too busy, acceptable. There's this one story where a gentleman had a beautiful office, had a beautiful live edge shelf behind him, probably some pictures, and a very expensive bottle of booze that he was probably really excited about. It's probably one that he hasn't opened, right, ever. And it's probably hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But the employer saw it, ended the interview, and proceeded to reject him and would not even, go forward with the interview. So, I mean, that's a joke that I tell any candidate. Do not, don't put booze behind you. But I think dressing for success is important. And from a resume standpoint, I think seeing progressive success, progressive promotions is always a good sign of a quality candidate. Making sure your resume matches somewhat that job description that you're going for. If you're an engineer and your, resume doesn't have all of the letters and, things that go along with an engineering position, that's probably not good. You need to look at a job description before you submit your resume and make sure that there are key elements that are jumping off the page of your resume that match that job description. That's rule number one for me when I submit a resume over to an employer.
Jamie, thoughts about candidates leveraging AI for their resume? Can you spot that? Is it bad, or is it helpful?
I cannot spot it, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm not sure that I'm an AI expert.
Yeah.
I don't like a lot of graphics. I even hesitate putting pictures on, like a professional picture on your resume. Um, I just like a basic resume, education, your experience, and details within the body that show your success. So if you've saved the company X million dollars, it needs to be in there. But I don't like a lot of the graphics, but
Can
that's
I
me
just
personally.
Well, can I add on to that for a second?
Yeah.
I mean, every recruiter, every person is going to like resumes a little bit differently. Having
Mhm.
been responsible for equity, a couple of things that I will say is pictures are not the greatest idea because there could be bias one way or the other, and you don't know if you
Okay.
are hitting somebody's bias when you are including your picture. I mean, the other thing is I had somebody tell me once, remove dates. You can put years, but remove dates, especially if you have like a few month break in there. And the
Okay.
reason why is because then it creates this, well, why did you have this break? Why didn't you just go from job to job or, certain things? And so you want to try and figure out ways to think about where there might be potential bias that could come and just knock you out from the very beginning and do what you can to remove those things. Now, I know that there's some recruiters that love a picture and love all the dates and some of that information. I mean, what I think is more important on a resume is that you show the outcomes. A lot of times I've seen
Mhm.
folks cut and paste a job description over. That's not what we want. We want to know what you did while you were in that job from a job description standpoint. What are the outcomes of what you did? Not that when I used to be in comp, that I used to rate jobs. What did I do? What did that get us? So I think that's what's
The
also
wins and the
key. Yes,
successes, right?
yes,
Mhm.
yes. Sorry, Jeff. I probably hopped in on top of you on that one. I was just so excited to say, don't put
Oh,
your
no,
picture
no,
on there.
no. But I think my biggest problem I've ever had with people's resume is a lack of results. And actually, it goes back to when I was in the Navy, and I made everybody write their own evaluations. I started doing that as a second class petty officer. So when I was a chief, I made every first class write their own evaluation. And if they couldn't get it right, it went back to them. And if they couldn't get it right again, it's like, okay, you're going to get evaluated against everybody else. And actually, at that point in time, the military, we had tiers. So like the top tier was like the top 20%, I think, and then the next 30% or something, and the bottom 50%. If you wanted to be in that top 20%, you had to write yourself in there. It had to be factual, but you actually had to show results. And a lot of it was just like descriptions, just very dry descriptions. It's like the Navy's definition of a chief petty officer was sustained superior performance, not sustained large job descriptions. And
Mhm.
there's a big difference, and people don't seem to get that. And I still see, even with very senior people, in fact, somebody did send me their resume, and I just wanted to like call them up right away and say, "My God, this is like the most amazing resume I've seen in a long time," because it was just result, 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 result. And You're not hiring people that know how to do things. Hiring people that know how to get things done, and that is just fundamentally different. When we interview, going back kind of the interview questions, everything I would ask would be like story driven. It would be challenging. It would be things like, okay, you say you worked on this very big project. Great. Um, Tell me the three things that went worst during that project and what did you do about them? Another thing I'd ask them, if they said they had worked on a team, I'd say, tell me tell me what the contributions the other team members made and how that moved that forward. Somebody's like, you don't want to ask that question. This question is about them. I'm like, that is about them. Because if they said they worked on a team project and they think they did all the work, then they didn't work. They either had like a really weak team, but really it's this bias of you like only value your own work. So did you actually see the team members around you? Did you value the team? Did you use the team effectively and know your role on the team? So that's what I've always tried to do, is try to draw things out of people that make them tell me how they work, how they approach work, because I'm looking for self-starters. I'm looking for problem solvers. I am looking for people that will be good team players. And those are the kind of things that will make an organization thrive.
You
Hey,
know
Jeff,
that I Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
sorry, I
Jamie.
have a question about because you said, tell me about a time where you had a challenge or you failed. if they don't give you a example, if they try to go around that and say, well, I didn't fail, someone else did, but I did this. I actually had a hiring manager that specifically kept asking the same question of a candidate, because many candidates are very hesitant to admit defeat or admit if they did something wrong, and what they did to correct it and why it won't happen again. He actually declined several people because they would not admit default. So are you of that same mindset that you need to hear the failure?
No, because I don't like the failure word. Because
Well, of
somebody
course
actually,
not.
no, I'm dead
Yeah.
serious, because I was sitting around with some senior IT professionals from my old organization while we were getting ready to go into an open enrollment season, and we were killing some time in a room, and somebody is like, well, if you haven't had a major IT project fail, you haven't worked on anything. I'm like, I've never had an IT project fail. I never had. I had many things go horribly wrong and have to readjust, but we always got the project done in the end. It might not have looked like in the end what we wanted it to start like, and that's why there's a difference between running into difficulties and rising above those and failures. Now, you may have had failures, but I didn't address it from a failure as more of how do you deal with the obstacles that come up whenever you're working on something large and complicated, but not because in the end, for me, anything that didn't go right wasn't necessarily a failure, as long as we figured out what we were going to do next to keep things moving forward. It was just a part of the process to have obstacles.
And an opportunity to learn, right? What could we have done differently? Is there something that we might have missed that we could look at differently? One of the, I guess I have a question for both of y'all on, I've also recognized that there's different abilities on how to write a resume. Jeff, kind of what you were going back to in the Navy, where you're asking people to write their own assessments, and putting my equity lens on here, not everybody has the same educational opportunities to learn how to write and to feel comfortable writing. How do you think that affects then the ability to potentially have a strong enough resume to get where you need to be, especially for folks that just don't have, you might not need that writing, you might not need that, you might need a super math brain or something like that. What is your thought on that?
My thought is, if you can't do it, you're going to probably have to pay somebody to help you with it that can write.
Yeah.
Because it's not a fair world, and your resume is going to stack up against everybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
You all have been in, I've done it on a fairly large scale, even in the enterprise I'm on, but you guys have been in the seat where you're getting, I don't even know how many resumes a week you had to look at. And in any kind of, it's kind of like, how do you get through a multiple choice test as you eliminate wrong answers? How do you get through a personnel process as you get rid of resumes? You're not trying to qualify people, you're disqualifying people, you're down selecting all the way until you have a selection. And the first down select is on the resume. And so I don't think it's like AI is one way. I would actually have a smart human rather than artificial intelligence. I met with somebody this week who's willing to help people out. He's a career coach. He's a career transitions coach. He does a lot of pro bono work just to help people, but he'll also, if you had to actually recraft your resume, you'd probably be paying him for it, but it's worth its weight in gold. You pay a few $100 to have somebody, and you're not asking them to misrepresent what you do, but this is somebody that is representing what you do. If you look at a corporation has people that really know how to craft a message around your product. That's not most of the people that are making this great product. So you know how to make the great product and you don't know how to sell it. That great product is you. Get somebody to help you sell that product.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to pivot us just a little bit here. Great conversation. And yeah, please keep jumping in. So let's go to this question though. So from your perspective, because a lot of what we want to get out of this episode is tips for job seekers, which we've gotten tons already. So helpful. A lot of the things you guys have said already, but also people that are not looking for a job, but have a lot of connections who are looking for a job, what's helpful there. So what support what support really helps job seekers most from someone who's not looking for a job right now, who can help in some way. And you've talked about networking and introductions, and I'm, if we can, if there's anything beyond that, let's go there. But also, what are some things intended to help that people are doing that they're trying to help that actually just hurt the process? If you can, does anything come to mind for you guys there?
I mean, I would say reaching out to them from a human connection standpoint of, hey, I know this is hard. I mean, I have somebody who was somebody that I previously worked with, and I periodically send her a text and ask her if she just wants to chat.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't even talk about her job search or what's going on there. It's what's going on with your life. And I was on the phone with her this morning, and we talked. Right, they just moved down to San Diego and got a new house, and so it's being there as a connection point, because a lot of times when you leave an organization, yes, you've lost your job, but as adults, we are interacting and working with people most of our waking hours at work. And so you've also lost in some ways this sense of community. And so keeping those connections and being there for those folks just to listen, I think is it's something that obviously you can't do it with everybody that you know, but if there were some folks that you were close to, like, it matters. I mean, one of the things that she said to me this morning is she said, I appreciate you reaching out because it shows that our relationship mattered and that I matter. So I think that's something that you can do, because especially when it's a hard market and you're not getting that next sense of community quickly, you can be even more isolated and alone in your job of job searching.
Right.
I think what you can do also, so I think there's the human connection piece. I think you can also just sit down and have a career conversation with somebody, especially if you know a lot about them. So I've asked people that have worked with or for me to see their resumes, and then given them feedback on their resumes, talked with them about where do they want to go now, like what are they looking to do, and sometimes they don't know, and so the conversation itself help, like they need to work through things that maybe they haven't worked through. So even though you're just asking questions, it's a way to help them sharpen it up. And then another thing is, if you actually know somebody and know what they're good at, I've had people tell me things when I left CMS, and they put this book together for me, and you would read things in there and I'm like, I don't think I would have said that about me, but I see why you're saying that about me now. And that just like lets you think about yourself differently. So if you know strengths that a person has, like having that conversation with them and saying, are you remembering to talk about this? This is why I liked having you work for me. These were the things you did that made you valuable to me. Do you craft those into your conversations? If you craft it into your resume, like, does this come out that this is the person you are? So that, help them remember why they were successful when they were at work, so that they can express that to the next employer.
I love that. Jamie, anything?
Well, I was just thinking, I had a candidate that was with a company for 15 years and was unfortunately part of a reduction in force, right? And so he had a long career in a certain field, but he had other various roles too in the beginning of his career. And having those conversations with his network and just breaking out and having the brutal, hard conversations, I need help. It actually came about that somebody that he used to work with, let's say 10 years ago, when they knew him then, loved that he was, so charismatic and really good in a sales atmosphere. So ended up hiring him to do some sort of a sales role because he remembered what a great, person he was in that role. So career pivot, and there it was. So it's just about making connections, as many connections as you can. I tell people all the time, I understand what they're going through. I had a family member that was in their position. I understand the struggles, the happiness, sadness, anger, all of the emotions. And it's hard to see it when you're in it, but everything happens for a reason. And again, it's really hard to see when you're in the thick of it, but I really do think things happen and good will come it's just a matter of being patient, and hopefully, hopefully you have the ability to be patient in this market. I guess that's the hard thing, is to sit there and tell a person it'll be okay, but they have to pay bills, right? Next week or next month. So it's easy to say, but being as understanding as you can and trying to tell them that you get it, it's comforting, I think.
Yeah, the feedback from the job seekers was, don't say it's going to be okay. It was talk to me, ask me how I am, encourage me, but don't say, don't it's sort of dismissive, right? If it can be said in a certain way where it's not, but it feels like that often when they hear those words.
Yeah, it's hard because you don't know what's happening tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah.
It's very uncertain times for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Right, and I emphasize now, I mean, this job market's kind of tough, especially for the folks we're dealing with, because there's a glut in this market. They all have similar skill sets. 20,000 people that go from HHS is a lot of people, and they're not all in DC, obviously, but they're concentrated in certain markets, and those markets are just glutted right now with people with the same skill set. And a lot of people that would hire them are also facing contract cuts, grants cuts, and things like that are complicating the search. And so I, in no way, and I've made it very clear that what Schedule F will do is help you. But we're not necessarily, we're not going to place you. We can't guarantee that. We're going to do everything we can. You need to do your own search. I can't tell you how long this is going to take. I can tell you just got to keep at it, and figure out what you need to do to lift yourself up on the outside. But I don't ever want to give somebody this false sense of assurance. It's like, oh, you come, give us your resume, and a couple of job interviews later, you're going to be placed, because it's not like that at all. I knew it would be hard. It's way harder than I had anticipated. Now that I'm 6 months in.
Yeah, one of our earlier episodes, an executive said, he was talking about just solving problems in general, but he said, progress begets progress, and if we make progress and we see that progress, it gives us hope, and hope is what keeps us going, right? So yeah, little steps, so yeah, just keep going, right, and keep trying, because even nothing lasts forever. Nothing is permanent. There will be an end to this for each person, and but yeah, the journey's hard. I know.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What message would you want to leave with job seekers and with the people who are trying to support them?
For the people supporting them, and actually employers too, just be kind. These people are going through some rough time, and be sympathetic to that. I think particularly on the folks that are doing the hiring. Don't ghost. Give them a no, but say yes or say no. Let people know what the status is, so that they know that they're not waiting for 30 days and then trying to figure out when they write you off. And then for the folks that know job seekers, I think the things that we've already said, just touch them, and let them know that you're thinking of them and that you support them, and kind of try to meet them where they're at. Listen more than talk to them too. Just hear how they're feeling, and try and be as supportive as you can, and in no way kind of like the don't say it's going to be okay. Don't invalidate their feelings.
Right.
Try understand why they're feeling what they're feeling, and figure out how to deal with that emotion.
I would say be okay with rejection. As hard as that is, rejection is just a response, and it's almost a redirection to go a different way. Again, it goes back to, it's a numbers game. You get so many rejections, you're going to get an acceptance at one point, and it's just a matter of time. So don't get defeated. It's very hard to not keep telling yourself, I'm one rejection away from an acceptance. And then for people that support these individuals, a good shoulder,
Mhm.
to lean on, a nice cup of coffee, maybe a really big glass of red wine. Those are all really helpful things.
Yeah.
I would say see the person behind the resume, and understand that every resume that is coming in, or as you are doing it, like this is a human behind it who's looking for new work. So we need to make
Mhm.
sure that we're not just seeing it as a piece of paper, but a human that has a
Mhm.
lot of complexity going behind it. I also think that we can be proactive in supporting others. So don't wait for them to do outreach to you. If you know of somebody in your network who's out of work or who's actively working, reach out to them and ask them how you can help. How can I help? A lot of times it helps take the fear away from asking and being afraid of, I wouldn't call it rejection. And then lastly, if you do not get selected for a role, I would actually say it's not rejection. It's probably a good thing because you weren't the right person for that role, and
Right.
it would have been a mismatch, and you would have been back in the same spot very quickly. So
Sure.
the right one will
Right.
come.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Last 2 minutes. I like to end with some rapid fire questions that I ask every guest. So not related to the topic we've been talking about, but just more guidance from you guys. Number one, what's one book everyone should read? Jamie.
You know what? I hate to tell you this, but I can't even tell you the last time I read a book.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of busy.
Sure.
I have lots of kids and lots of priorities outside of reading.
Timshel.
I'm going to go with The Red Helicopter by James Rhee. It's a great book that he's written it in a way that shows from a business standpoint, but it's also not one of those dry business books that you read and you're like,
Yeah.
so I really, really like it. And his story is amazing, but what he's done from a business standpoint is amazing. So The Red Helicopter.
I have not heard of that. I'll have to check it
It's a
out.
good book.
Thanks. Jeff?
The first one off of Bob Sutton's list I read, I think, is really great. And for people that are trying to market themselves, it would probably be good too. Chip and Dan Heath's Made to Stick. It's about how to boil down something to a very simple idea, a sticky idea, and then how to package that up with stories that resonate. And I think it's essential reading. It's not just for people. We're all in sales, I guess. So it is for people in sales because we're all in sales. But it's a powerful book.
Gotcha. Okay, last question. How would you finish the sentence? For me, one of the most important ways to human up is to
Jeff said it. Be kind.
be kind. Timshel?
Yeah, I would say be kind. Put yourself in their shoes.
Listen.
Okay. I know we're at time, guys. Thanks so much. Great insights. I know this is going to be well received by the listeners and the people who are out there looking for work in this tough market. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk next time. Thanks, everyone.